Picture the moment you weigh out a strategy you've spent weeks perfecting. The data is accurate and the logic is sound. But as you finish, you're met with a heavy, uncomfortable silence. The people across from you aren't nodding, they're leaning back and crossing their arms. This is the breakdown point. Having a superior idea doesn't mean you win the room, because intelligence and evidence are often completely decoupled from how an audience actually perceives you. In these moments, we often default to a defensive posture. We try to use complex industry jargon to signal authority, or we stop listening to objections entirely, simply waiting for a gap in the conversation so we can repeat our point. When these interactions fail, they create a persistent friction. If this happens in every meeting or every disagreement, that friction eventually builds into a ceiling, a point where your technical skill can no longer push your ideas forward. Effective communicators avoid this by following specific patterns of behavior that de-escalate tension and establish a baseline of trust before the pitch even begins. Moving past this disconnect requires a shift in focus. It isn't about proving you are the smartest person in the room. It is about ensuring the people around you feel that their own perspectives are being integrated into the conversation. The process of repairing a conversation starts with something counterintuitive: a commitment to silence. Speaking quickly is a common tell for anxiety. The deliberate pause shows that you are comfortable with the pace of the interaction and that you are actually processing what is being said rather than just reacting to it. That extra second of thought is often what keeps a person from letting a sudden flash of anger or frustration dictate their response. When we feel criticized, the brain enters a state of high alert. The regions responsible for logical reasoning become less active as the focus shifts entirely to protecting our own ego. Skilled communicators bypass this reaction by staying calm and keeping the dialogue focused on a shared problem. By refusing to turn the conversation into a battle of wills, they keep the other person's logic centers engaged. Managing your own internal reactions and using silence effectively are the first steps in preventing a discussion from becoming a confrontation. Once you begin to speak, the most effective approach is to strip away unnecessary complexity. There is a common misconception that using dense, academic language makes a message more persuasive. In reality, clarity is the hallmark of expertise. Instead of lecturing someone on caloric control and muscular adaptation, a more effective communicator tells them to eat properly and stay consistent. The simpler the message, the listener is still subconsciously checking for consistency. Even with a simple message, the listener is still subconsciously checking for consistency. They are looking at more than just the words to decide if you are a credible source. The brain uses posture, tone of voice, and eye contact as a subconscious check against the spoken word. When these physical signals synchronize with the verbal message, the brain stops scanning for threats and begins to process the information. If you claim to be confident, but your shoulders are slouched and you're looking at the floor, the audience will trust the visual evidence every time. By combining a clear, simplified message with open, steady body language, you remove the friction that usually causes an audience to tune out. Finalizing a connection requires shifting from pushing information out to pulling information from the other person. Most of us engage in pseudo-listening, where we're really just waiting for the other person to stop talking so we can give them advice or move to our next point. This usually leaves the speaker feeling isolated in their situation. Active listening is an intentional effort to map out the other person's reality. The goal is to make them feel understood before you ever attempt to influence them. This is achieved by asking better questions that move past simple yes or no answers. Replacing a generic prompt like, "How was your day?" with, "What was the most interesting part of your day?" forces a person to pause and engage. You can see the tension leave their posture as they move from a defensive mode into a collaborative one. By prioritizing their perspective through better questions, you turn a passive observer into an active participant in the conversation. These behaviors highlight a consistent reality of human interaction. Logic is rarely accepted until the emotional environment is secure. The highest level of this approach is making others feel valued. This involves the small, consistent habits of remembering names, acknowledging opinions, and showing a genuine curiosity about what someone else has to say. People generally forget the specific sentences used in a meeting or a casual chat, but the feeling of being heard or being dismissed stays with them indefinitely. When you focus on the other person's need to be understood, the dynamic of the room changes. The usual resistance to new ideas begins to clear, making it much more likely that your own points will be seriously considered. True influence is found in this ability to create a shared understanding. To explore more of the behaviors that drive human connection, consider subscribing to the channel. At the end of the day, the best communicators aren't the ones who dominate the conversation. They are the ones who make sure everyone else feels that they've been heard.